Good morning, good morning to you. Good morning, good morning. Won't you share with a friend or two? Good morning, good morning to you. You. Good morning, good morning to you. You. Good morning, good morning to you and many more. Good morning, good morning, good morning, and welcome, welcome, welcome to Daring Dialogues. I am your host today, Shantae Charles. We're going to start out with Daily Motivations for African American Success by Dennis Kimbrough, and we are reading January 23rd. The title is I Know Where You Are Coming From. Andrew Young, which is very interesting because we talked about him yesterday, former U.S. ambassador, said, I don't care where you come from, I want to know where you're going. One of our most common and worst mistakes is to cover up our own abilities and potentialities by trying to be something we are not. And if you're with me for the first time, welcome to Daring Dialogues. This is season 14, episode 77, 78, somewhere around there. He says one of our most common and worst mistakes is to cover up our own abilities and potentialities by trying to be something we are not. A person could spend a lifetime studying the writings of Toni Morrison and never be able to write like her. The same would apply to sports or singing or acting or anything else. If the person trying to write like this famed author would write naturally, he or she would have a much better chance of succeeding. In doing what we most enjoy, we will probably make our greatest contribution to society. And the contribution we make to society will determine our rewards, both in real and in psychological terms. As you sow, so shall you reap. There are no exceptions to this rule. Finding our real abilities that we usually keep buried is like prospecting for gold. It's not necessarily easy, but we don't mind the digging so much when we know the gold is really there. Unless we can find our true selves, we will never really know what it means to be fulfilled. To wake up in the morning eager for the day to begin. Finding the best work that we are suited for is the number one responsibility of adult life. Ooh-wee. Finding the best work that we are suited for is the number one responsibility of adult life. I don't know about you, but I'm in pursuit of the best work. I am in pursuit of the work that matters right now. I'm in pursuit of making sure I have a clear conscience every single day that I am doing what I need to do and what is necessary. We can all do hundreds of things well, but one of those things we can do with uncommon ease and facility. When that happens, our work becomes our play. We are truly successful. The affirmation today at the bottom here says, I will make my work my play and my play my work. Very powerful. So today we are back in the book Failures of Forgiveness, What We Get Wrong and How to Do Better. If you've been joining us on Thursdays, you know that we've been taking a deep dive into the nature and concepts of forgiveness from various aspects in our life. We just finished up talking about forgiveness in the context of family And today we're going to look at forgiveness in the context of the workplace, um, working your work partner, and some people call them their work boo and all that stuff. But that's where we're going today with this book. However, I did want to discuss something along the lines of forgiveness because um, this past weekend I was faced with having to reflect and introspect and think about forgiveness for myself and in my own life. So on Friday, I got a call about one person very dear to me who has passed away. She was a part of our ministry as a partner. She was not a member or anything like that with us, but she was a person that partnered with our ministry, and her name is Linda Price. She passed away on last Friday, and so when I got the call, it was a couple of hours after she had passed away, and I am still processing that. Tomorrow is going to be her homegoing, is what we call it in the African American context. Tomorrow's going to be her homegoing, and I've been just trying to over the past week just thinking about her and looking back at photographs and thinking about the work that she did and thinking about the ways that she has contributed to her town, not only her town, but her family, not only her family, but our ministry, and how she was an integral part of helping me to stay encouraged, an integral part of speaking life into me when there were people who doubted our move in the first place, moving from Florida up to the DC region, when there were people that were literally, you know, coming against us and saying, you know, why are you all doing this? When there were people that didn't receive what we had to say or what we had to offer, she was always that person that came and encouraged, that prayed over us, that believed in us. And one of the things she said when we first met her, this was back in 2011, she said, I prayed that God would send somebody to this region, and he sent somebody to this region. And so for her, our life, our ministry, our taking the chance to come to a new region where we didn't know anybody, where we didn't have a family connection, where we didn't have a business connection, where we didn't have a setup and an easy ride or whatever. For her, seeing our walk of faith and our step of faith was an encouragement to her that God heard her and God answered her prayers. And so we are definitely, you know, offering our condolences to her family and reaching out in some further context before tomorrow. I said all that to say because right after I got that call about her passing, and I still haven't posted anything online because I've been waiting for her family to do that. And now that they have, I can, you know, share my own thoughts. But after that call, another call came of a couple that had passed away. And I can tell you that I immediately went from immense grief and pain and disbelief because this beautiful person that I had known for over a decade has transitioned to a feeling of almost um, sort of numbness. And I don't know if it's a mixture of numbness and um, I think I'm still at numbness. I'll just say it that way. So the other news that I got was about a couple that had passed that I didn't have very good feelings about, and I'm being very honest and very transparent today. Um, when I heard the news of their passing, I didn't feel anything. And if anybody knows me, I'm a person that I'm compassionate. Like when somebody passes, like I said, I had just gotten the news of the other person, and I went from this immense grief to complete numbness hearing about this couple. Well, you might say, well, why did your emotions shift so quickly? Well, because that couple also played an integral part, a part of our journey up here into a new region, but it was in a really bad way. Like what they did to my husband and I was not very kind. It was not very nice. Um, I won't go into it. I will probably put it in a book at some point, but it was very disheartening. It was um, it was things that made us question whether or not we should be in this region. And so, because of that, because of how that relationship ended, um, there was no result, there was no resolution to that. Like, they didn't apologize for what they had done. Like, we saw them, I would say, um, from the time we sort of disconnected from them to the present. We maybe saw them one or two times in between. When you're talking about between 8 and 9 years, so it wasn't like we were always seeing them or anything like that. But the times that we did see them, there was an unresolved issue that was there. And now that they have both transitioned, that issue, um, in terms of resolving it, is one of those issues that will be left unresolved because they're no longer here. So hearing about their passing has made me feel a sort of numb in that regard. Um, were there some redeeming qualities about them as a couple? Yes, there was. Um, but when you have a relationship with someone and that relationship goes sour, and there is not a closure, there's not a reconciliation there, right? If that person passes on, you could feel numb. And so I'm not trying to rush myself past how I'm feeling. I'm not trying to rush myself um, in my reflections on my relationship with that couple. I am taking it one day at a time. I am, however, trying to do the inner work to say, is there something that I could have done differently? Like, did I need to reach out to them? Um, and of course, like I said, within that time period, we saw them two other times, and we were cordial, but there was still this distance that was there because of how we left that relationship. And so, if you might be feeling some kind of way about the people passing in your life, you might be in the space where you feel numb. You might be in a space where you feel upset or angry because you don't feel like you got the closure that you needed. And I just want to say today that sometimes it's okay to feel that. Don't try to rush yourself through or past the feelings and the emotions that you have, because we can do that. We can shake it off and laugh and joke and sing and move on. But I'm choosing not to do that because I want to interrogate myself in my process, because at the end of the day, I am still alive. So I'm asking myself, are there things about that relationship that I could have done differently? um, I'm asking myself, is there any anger within me as to what happened? I'm asking myself, have I let it go? Have I let whatever offenses that I held, have I truly let them go? Because even after seeing them, I wasn't um, I wasn't fully done with the feeling of resentment, because I'm like, this didn't have to go this way. This didn't have to end this way. Um, So I'm allowing myself to process my feelings. I'm allowing myself to process my emotions. And I am refraining, though, from giving any commentary about what actually happened between ourselves and that couple. Because right now, Their immediate family is definitely grieving. So they don't need to hear from me. They don't need to hear that. They don't need to hear that. And I will never forget, and again, this goes back to introspection. I will never forget when I was sitting in the funeral home during what we call the wake, right? Where the family members come in and you can visit the person's body before burial. And I will never forget when I was at my father's wake and I was sitting on the front row and I'm grieving because this is my father. And somebody comes in, they walked up to my father's casket, they stood in front of the casket and said loud enough for people to hear them. I'm sitting on the front row, so I'm hearing them. They said, and they're staring down at my father's body, and they said, "This is the guy that caused me to lose a lot of money." I can't even describe the rage that I experienced because I wanted to just jump up and wrap my hands around that person's neck and start just going to town. So even if you did not have a good relationship with somebody, if even if that relationship did not end the way you felt it should have ended, even if you didn't come to a place of reconciliation, there's just certain things that if you have a measure of decorum, a measure of decency about yourself, that you just don't do. And one of them is entering into a space to deliver your disrespect while a family is grieving. Because no matter how you felt about that person, they still had people in their life that cared about them or that may have seen them in a different light. Now, did he have in his mind the right to feel the way he felt? Of course he did. But was that appropriate? Was that appropriate? So I think about that. That comes to my mind um, in processing. Does everything need to be said? Is this the time to say it? Is this the time to focus on it? Is this the time to stress it? Or can I appreciate the facets and aspects of that couple? And can I give the credit to those facets and those aspects? And I say to myself, I can. I can. I can. Um, One of them was responsible for introducing me to another continent in terms of speaking and hosting. And so I'm thankful for that. I'm thankful for that opportunity. Um, so I can look at the positives. I can say this is what came out of that relationship, even though the relationship did not end the way that I wanted it to. All right. So as we close up family and friend forgiveness, I want us to start looking into chapter 7, the business of forgiveness. Dunder Mifflin is a fictitious paper supply company whose day to day operations are depicted in The Office, a mockumentary series that ran for 9 seasons on NBC, with the aim of providing limitless paper in a paperless world. Its Scranton branch employees, led by manager Michael Scott, come to work each day to sell and innovate. This work requires collaboration, of course. However, inter-office conflict disrupts employees' well-being and the teamwork required for the business to succeed. Phyllis is constantly the butt of her manager's jokes. Ryan talks behind his coworker's back. Angela calls social services on Pam for drinking soda while pregnant and calls immigration services on Oscar for being Mexican American. Dwight once sent a misogynistic memo to employees recommending that women not speak to strangers without his consent and that there be restrictions on their clothing. The worst offender, of course, is Michael, who is happy to gossip about all his colleagues' affairs, outs his coworker, and occasionally fires people as a practical joke. The Office was popular with fans not only because its dialogue was hilarious and memorable, but also because its depiction of white collar office conflict, initiated by weirdos, sweethearts, and bullies, was so relatable. Petty, inappropriate, childish, insensitive, aggressive, and patronizing behavior can create conflict at any workplace. But how do you properly respond? Is forgiveness the cure? If we were sitcom screenwriters and had to give a name to an episode of a current real life corporate solution, we would call it Forgiveness Week because it's become faddish for organizations to create a culture of forgiveness to respond to workplace conflict. Indeed, in business and management schools across the United States, future leaders are studying forgiveness. More than 150,000 articles have been written about forgiveness in organizations in the last decade alone. Articles in mainstream publications targeting entrepreneurs argue that you should forgive your work nemesis, link forgiveness to business leaders' comebacks after errors and even scandals, and suggest ways to achieve brand forgiveness. Forgiveness, it seems, is a best business practice. In this chapter, I caution against overselling forgiveness in the workplace. Instead, we should focus more on creating a work environment that's active in curbing conflict to begin with. But because conflicts will arise, I recommend ways to resolve and recover from wrongdoing without condoning it or overburdening employees. I'll suggest that businesses should focus their energies on creating a climate that's ripe for forgiveness rather than pushing employees to forgive. You don't have to watch an episode of The Office to know that conflict at work is linked to stress, health problems, and hostility. You probably have a lot of first-hand evidence at your own disposal to prove it. Conflict can also distract from productivity and reduce cooperation. Yet conflict itself is inevitable and not necessarily the central problem. Rather, it is how we respond to conflict that predicts whether things like tension and anxiety will persist. One response that has received significant attention in conflict resolution literature is forgiveness. The management specialist Michael Stone claims that a lack of forgiveness in the aftermath of conflict has a negative impact on multiple levels of an organization. On the individual level, it can create alienation, withdrawal, unhappiness, and lack of creativity. On the team level, it can create distance, negative politics, and a lack of common direction. And on the organizational level, it can produce mistrust, low allegiance, and high turnover. Forgiveness, on the contrary, is believed to break the conflict cycle and contribute to employee retention, helping behavior, and interpersonal citizenship behavior. Again, these contributions occur at multiple levels of the organization. On the individual level, forgiveness can create happiness, vibrant health, peace of mind, and creativity. On the team level, forgiveness can create interconnection, the feeling of community, and mutual support. On the organizational level, it can make work feel meaningful, improve employee retention, and generate an overall focus on service. Social psychologists who have sought to put these claims to the test have found that there is at least some association between forgiveness and well being in the workplace. In one study consisting of participants from a variety of career fields, researchers found that forgiveness is linked to fewer physical and mental health problems associated with workplace conflict. Participants who reported to have forgiven a workplace offense also reported an increase in work productivity. This led researchers to conclude that reducing unforgiveness and promoting forgiveness may be promising and fruitful avenues to optimizing workplace relationships, well being, productive performance, and related savings and profitability. In other words, if a healthy workplace is vital to employees' well being and positive work outcomes, and forgiveness is linked to such outcomes, then forgiveness is important and should be promoted. Forgiveness, it seems at first blush, counteracts the bad effects of conflict and inspires positive outcomes. However, these aspects only point to associations. The fact that positive outcomes are linked does not mean promoting forgiveness would help. Correlation isn't causation. So psychologists set out to see what happens if forgiveness is promoted in the workplace. Could such training result in improvements in employees' productivity and well being in the aftermath of conflict? To test this, researchers designed a pilot program to measure the effect of forgiveness on sales and well being after participants underwent forgiveness training. The first ever attempt to teach forgiveness to employees. The program, which took place over a period of 6 to 12 months, consisted of 104 participants from the financial services industry, who were divided into 6 cohorts. For the project, researchers defined forgiveness as the releasing of negative emotions and the extending of positive emotions, attitudes, and behavior towards the wrongdoer. The first part of the training attempted to instill in participants the idea that forgiveness is a key aspect and enhancement of emotional intelligence, a broad family of skills: self awareness, self regulation, empathy, social skills, and motivation. Thought to make great leaders and help workers be effective. The other half of the training focused on techniques for stress management and taught participants to practice the 9 steps to forgiveness, which included knowing exactly how you feel about what happened, amending your grievance story, and remembering that a life well lived is your best revenge. Participants were also provided with individual plans and coaches to help them tackle their forgiveness related work weaknesses. At the end of the study, participants who completed the program were assessed with respect to productivity, stress, anger, positive states, health related quality of life, and physical vitality. The researchers found that compared to the control group, the training resulted in several positive outcomes. For example, participants experienced a decrease in stress by 23% and anger by 13%, as well as an increase in a positive state of mind and quality of life. The researchers concluded that teaching employees forgiveness skills proactively before conflict arises can promote wellness and productivity post conflict. If this is correct, then forgiveness is not merely linked to positive effects, but it is a genuine source of these benefits. The results from the study suggest that if we focus primarily on the forgiver and their training, then the negative effects of workplace conflict will subside. Yet, as soon as we will see, achieving these benefits requires much more than doling out forgiveness in the office. So we will stop there because I want us to have some time for the talk back. Next time we come back, we will be in the section entitled It Takes a Village. It Takes a Village. All right. If you're struggling with forgiveness, understanding it, um, and want to understand more deeply about forgiveness, I do recommend this book for yourself. All right. If you've been watching by YouTube, I want to thank you for your time and attention. We are heading over to Instagram. We are there now, but we're going to do the talk back there. So you can join us at Daring Dialogues, all one word, and hopefully I'll see you there. Take care and be light.